Alright, so for today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Kobalt 7-inch wire stripper. Now, I think the model number for these is 2564366, and these are just a standard pair of wire strippers. They are somewhat comparable to some other ones we've taken a look at here on the channel, whether it's the Greenlee ones, whether it's the Doyle ones, the Klein ones. Pretty much everyone seems to have a style of wire strippers like these, but I decided to go ahead and pick these up just to see how well they could perform. So to start off the video here, we'll take a look at the handles, and you do have a double dipped handle. So you got that black dip on the inside and this blue dip here on the outside. And of course it is in Kobalt's colors, which is pretty much blue, black, and gray, I think. You got the Kobalt name that is, I believe, just stamped onto the surface of the plier. So after some well use, eventually that will start to fade and wear off. But other than that, this bottom handle is fairly plain, and the back side of the handles, again, is fairly plain. Don't have any safety warnings or anything like that stamped onto the tool. Now, coming up to the main part of the tool, this is going to be a spring-loaded tool, and you do have a lock. Now, you do have one safety warning here. It's obviously never use it on a live circuit. This will not protect you against a getting electrical from an electrical shock or getting electrocuted. Now, for some reason, they decided to put a 1032 and an 832 bolt cutter on there. Normally, with the pair of wire strippers like these, you generally get an 832, but you also get a smaller 632 screw cutter. Those are a little bit more common sizes, so I'm not 100% sure why they decided to go with a 1032. But if you work with some 1032 screws and you need to cut them down, this tool will be able to do it. Now, this one is labeled in both metric and SAE wire sizes, or American wire gauge sizes. So the one side here is going to be in solid sizes, so it'll go from 10 to 20 solid, and then that equivalent is also labeled there for the metric side there. So if you're going to use these to work with stranded wire, pretty much the easiest way to do it is you look at the wire size on here and you just add 2 to it. So if you're working with 12 gauge stranded, it'd be your 10 gauge solid. 14 stranded would be 12 solid, and there on, and that's pretty much how that would work there. And then you do have some holes here, so if you needed to make a loop with, let's say you're working with some solid wire, you do have some looping holes there. And you got 2 of the looping holes, which is nice. And then you do have a nice pair of cutters here on the tool. It's that shear style, so you're going to get a little bit cleaner of a cut. It's not going to be as jagged. And then coming up to the top, you have a tiny little pair of pliers if you wanted to use it to pull maybe some insulation off a wire. Or if you were working and you're trying to pull off like a spade terminal or something like that, and you wanted to use a little pair of pliers to pull that terminal off, you could use those to do that. And then the lock is right here. Opens to about there on the tool. So you just want to be careful. I know for me personally, with these locks, I always tend to have my finger up here, so it is easier for me to accidentally lock the tool, but it seems as if this kind of be easy, kind of hard to accidentally lock the tool since it's a little bit of a tighter mechanism. And then coming to the back side, you really have nothing here on the back. Normally, with a pair of wire strippers like this, you get the laser etching on the front, and then it's kind of stamped in the back, just in case this laser etching does tend to wear off over time. But that's pretty much it for the detail on this tool. We'll go ahead and zoom out and get to some of the functionality. So like I said, this tool is spring-loaded, so it pretty much can open up to as large as you want it before it hits that lock there. So that is a fairly large opening on the tool. And if you wanted to lock it, boom, just put that lock into place and the tool is locked. So we'll go ahead and bring in some wire here. Get some 18 stranded wire here, and we'll test these guys out. So for 18 stranded, I believe that is 16 solid. So we'll go ahead and pull off that insulation. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you make a pair of wire strippers or a pair of pliers that can't strip 16 or 18 stranded or some small thin gauge wires, you probably don't have any business making a pair of wire strippers. So that was 18 solid. We'll throw that out of the frame, and we'll bring in some 12 stranded wire here, and we'll see if we have the same results, and actually stripped off that insulation fairly easily. Now I like to strip my wire. I like to give it a turn and then strip it. And again, just a super clean strip on there. Absolutely no damage done to the conductors on the wire. So that is good to see with that. And might as well bring in a piece of 10 gauge stranded wire, even though these aren't rated to strip 10 gauge wire, but might as well try it out and see if we can't get these guys to damage the wire. I oftentimes do this a lot when I'm working with some stranded wire. If I'm just lazy and don't really feel like, or if I don't have a pair of wire strippers that'll do it, or if I'm just feeling lazy, I'll just go like that and pull off the insulation. And you want to be very careful if you're going to do that, because you don't want to damage those conductors there on the inside. And these guys were able to do just that, able to strip that wire without any damage. So that's that for the wire stripping. Now, I don't have any 1032 screws, but I do have a 832 screw, so we'll go ahead and we'll try out the screw cutter on the tool. So you pretty much just line it up till the screw will start to thread in, and then once you get the screw started, you can just take a Phillips head screwdriver and you just screw it in to the desired length that you want to have cut off of the screw, and then we'll see how well and or how hard it is to go ahead and strip this, or to cut this screw. So we have, we're going to cut, I'd say, about that much off of the screw. Maybe you're working with a screw that's a little bit too long for the box you're working with, and you want to trim it down rather than hunting a new screw down. So we'll see if we can't do this with one-handed. Generally with these 832 screws, it's a little bit challenging to do one-handed, but we'll go ahead and give it a shot. So it's definitely a little bit challenging to do one-handed, but I was able to cut that screw there and shear it off. Hopefully I didn't mess up the tool. So we'll go ahead and we'll back out that screw now. And it appears I don't think we messed up the tool. I've done that before in the past where I don't know if I threaded it in wrong or I cut the screw and something got stuck in the tool, but I didn't appear to mess up the screw there. And you have a relatively, there's a little bit of a burr on top of that screw. I don't think that should be too big of a problem, but it did lop off that part that we wanted to cut off. So overall, not a bad pair of wire strippers from Kobalt. And if you're unfamiliar with the Kobalt brand, it's pretty much Lowe's house brand. So they try to make tools kind of competitive to some of the other brands like Klein and things like that, but they offer them for a little bit cheaper of a price. So just keep that in mind. Now, I believe these offer a lifetime guarantee. So I think if you end up breaking the tool or something happens to the tool while you're using it, I believe if you're the original owner, you can just take it back into the store and get a new tool. So with that being said, that's kind of all I have for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.